We're so good. Thank you, Attorney Lee, for having us again.
Okay, now, first of all, I'm going to start with my panel of expert. We were saddened, of course, to see the Breonna Taylor grand jury. We've had the Marion County prosecutor on our show talk about the process. And there was a saying that they used to say when I became a lawyer. They said a prosecutor through the grand jury process can indict a ham sandwich. And so from that standpoint, I was troubled by the fact that Dan Cameron allowed this process to go on for over 6 months. And the reason that was important to me, so you can know, I've been doing this 39 years, is that the evidence 1 week after the incident didn't change from today's date. So they would have had the same evidence within a week. In fact, the way you collect evidence, it collected that same day. So the ballistic information in terms of the shell casing from the pistols that were fired, they would have been identified at the scene. So within hours, that information would have been available. The holes in the walls, that would have been documented within hours. And so here's my point. When you delay the investigatory process, you allow each of the police officers to meet with lawyers. They have an opportunity, because they're there at the scene, they get to see the evidence. And so they can synchronize their story. The key factor, of course, is the fact that the no-knock warrant, did they identify themselves as police officers? Everybody in the building said no, and they twisted the guy apparently 3 times. He said, yeah, maybe. But the point I'm making is this, is that I believe that when you delay this process, justice delayed is sometimes justice denied. I think that that prosecutor made the wrong result. Now, as a result of that, we've seen a great deal of activism in the community. And so our solution is to make sure that people go out and vote, because we can go out and protest, but unless we turn this energy into a positive effect by voting and voting these people out of office, there won't be any change. I can guarantee you that. Starting off, Mr. Grime, what do you think about that decision?
Of no prosecution?
Yes.
Whew. Nate, I want to criticize it vehemently, but I don't know all of the facts. It's just the facts that I do know indicate that these officers covered up some things. They lied. They switched the order of the shooting. The young man that was there asked for them to identify themselves. He said no one identified themselves as police officers. The majority, if not all of the neighbors, said they did not hear them identify themselves as police officers. So they violated the notice part of this knock. Yes, I questioned the decision not to prosecute, but I wish I knew more of the detailed facts. Maybe Mr. Sweeney does.
What do you think, Mr. Sweeney?
Well, first off, I want to send condolences to our beautiful sister, Vanita Banks, for the loss of a family member. You have our condolences. That's number one. You said, I'm not surprised that this grand jury did not indict us. It's pretty much along the same lines that going on in this country for centuries. You mentioned that, Nathaniel, that a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. Well, the full quote is they can indict a ham sandwich for the murder of a pig. It's very, very easy to indict. There was no transparency in this process. This attorney general who got up there and spoke, who was sent out there to quiet the masses, this African American attorney general, is a puppet of Mitch McConnell. I hope he feels good about himself at the end of the day. Can he look in the mirror? But to answer your question and follow up on what Milton said, it's just strange that one officer can be indicted for wanton recklessness or for shooting into the apartment of a white man next door, and then bullets to go into a black woman's body in the same raid, the same volley of shots. No one is indicted for that. So it sends a message that you can just, if you can just scare a white person, you're going to get indicted. But if you kill a black person, uh, you don't get indicted. And just to show you the juxtaposition of uh, uh, the this wanton recklessness, shooting into a dwelling, and the uh, lack of charges against the shooter for the killing of Breonna Taylor. I understand that upstairs from Breonna Taylor, there was another apartment shot into, and that apartment was owned or being occupied by a black man. So you have the same thing that happened in the neighbor's apartment, a white person, a bullet entered in his apartment, an indictment. A bullet entered in an apartment of a black man upstairs, no indictment, and no indictment for the killing of the black woman. So that sends a very, very bad message. I don't know all the facts. As a trial lawyer, Milton and I are trained to get all of the facts, but from what I see, this ham sandwich should have been indicted in this case.
Now, to our all-star panel of college students, start on Ms. Anderson. You guys been following the news. How does it affect the college student, white women charge, your access to or information that you're receiving? Would that motivate you guys more to go to the poll and vote, or how does it affect the students?
I think that it does motivate a lot more people to use their voice, that voice for trying to transform, just as you were saying, the energy into voting. I think that people overall are being a lot more verbal about the injustices, their personal oppression, but I don't think that it's increasing the trust in the system that we would need directly before the election. If anything, it's pulling off the trust in the system, which is disheartening to see. But I also think that there are other avenues where if people do not vote still, even amongst all of the activism going into it and all of the information going out that proves why you should vote as an American, if people still do not, I think that they will apply their voice in some other facet. I don't think that people are going to continue to be silent, which is a positive, but it's just not, the energy is not being allocated properly still.
Now, you're a student down at what university?
I go to Xavier University of Louisiana as a biology pre-med major, and I think that here, in comparison to where I'm from in Indiana, the general trust in the government, or the system as they call it, as a whole is a lot lower, and the information and general knowledge about how the system works, what are the processes, what is just the content that goes into making a law, for example, all of that, none of that is taught. I would say that definitely 75% of people that I come into contact with in just a general day that are very intelligent, scientific minds have no idea how the voting process, how even, I mean, any part of the general election process aside from voting, I would be confident to say that they do not know how the Electoral College works, how really anything that you should have learned in US history as far as what it makes a democracy. I don't think that they're aware of it. So it just lowers the accountability once again in terms of why they feel like they even have a voice, or why they feel like they should use it, or how important they are as an individual as well. It's just not there.
Olivia Taylor, where are you in school at now?
Yeah, hi, I'm a first-year student at Xavier University of Louisiana also. I'm a psychology pre-med major, and I definitely agree with Yasmin. I'm from California, Sacramento, California, and I've realized that a lot of people don't know that how the Electoral College works, and that their voice can matter if enough of us young people get out there and vote. It's disheartening to see, but I hope that with all this injustice happening, and they're posting about the decision not to prosecute the officers, so I hope that people will see that and see that we need to get out there and vote. But I do really agree that our generation is not going to keep staying silent. Now, I hope that translates into more voting action, but I guess we'll have to see.
Well, my concern is that I saw a lot of people out marching and protesting, but I looked at the number of percentage of folks that actually went out and voted down in Louisville. I wasn't happy with the numbers I saw. And so I'm trying to figure out, and I think it started with young folks like you. Max, what do you think about that? What's going to motivate you guys to go out and vote after you see what is apparently injustice in our criminal justice system?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is really increasing an understanding, as Yasmin had alluded to, understanding of the system and what actually works. A lot of people right now really think that the big time you vote or the only time you would be for the president, when that's not true. People should know that your local elections are a lot more influential in what happens in your day-to-day life. And so that means that you have to go out and educate people that you don't just vote once every 4 years. You got to vote every year. Got to vote in all the different elections that happen in your community. And for me at school, I know that we're doing like a huge push to get everybody registered to vote and a lot of voter education that way. And so I think one of the biggest things to motivate people to vote is education and teaching them how to make sure they're registered, how to vote, where to vote, and all the other little subtleties that go into that.
What do you attend college at now, Max?
I'm at Notre Dame right now.
What's your major?
Psychology and global affairs with a concentration in global policymaking.
Okay. So at Notre Dame, all the students are registered to vote?
So that's
First that.
Yeah. So that's a movement that we started. Within the athletic department, we've started to try to get 100% voter registration within the athletic department. And then we're going from athletics to the student body. And so there's two kind of campaigns working side by side. So I know right now that the football team, as well as a few other teams, are 100% in terms of voter registration. And then we have Indie Vote, which is a campaign for the general population at Notre Dame. And they're working towards getting as many people registered to vote before the deadline.
Wow. So one other question to student in general. Do you guys have the same thing at Xavier down in New Orleans what Max have at Notre Dame?
Why would we, as young Black people in a population of almost 100%, why would we have that same opportunity to vote? In Louisiana especially, they do their best and they do it well as far as oppressing Black people as a whole, whether you have money or not. The system is built well to oppress them for generations. And I think that it's very interesting as well to see that I really have not even heard. Olivia, have you heard anything about voting? I heard that they were trying to sign our entire student body up to be part of the vaccine trial for COVID, the national vaccine trial. And I've heard more about that than I have voting as a whole.
Who was they?
They is our administration at Xavier.
Being a freshman, I have heard about voting. They usually have like our dorm residence directors have a table up in the lobby, and they're asking everyone walking in and out if they're registered to vote, and they hand them like a paper to register. And in a sense, that's ineffective because we're college students with a million other things to do, and as we said earlier, like most of my peers don't see the value of registering or even voting, making the execution to actually vote if they're registered. So we have information and they're trying to make a big push for it, but I don't think it's being very effective.
Well, here's what I want all you college students to do to start today. I'm gonna do a major announcement next week. I want you to start on your social media starting today to encourage folks, particularly minority, at every college in America to do registration and to vote. Let me tell you why. There's something very important that's happened. I don't want to change Breonna Taylor, but I got to tell you something that really disturbed me. Judge Jackson is being considered apparently going to be nominated by Trump to be on the Supreme Court. And so they've been talking ad nauseum about her views on abortion. And I think that's an important point, but I'm going to tell you something. I got a bigger concern about this judge than most people. This judge was one of the judges on my case involving Day versus City of Indianapolis. In the Day case, the police officer tortured Day, he suffocated and died on video. So George Floyd had a knee on the neck. They killed this kid by putting handcuffs on him, making him lay on the sun and laying on top of the handcuff so tight that he couldn't breathe. So he suffocated over 20 some odd minutes, not 9, over 20 minutes. This judge was part of an opinion that basically say that a dying suspect like Dave must now identify why he's dying. So in other words, there's no civil accountability nor criminal accountability anymore for police officers who kill black males. And it was just an assaulting opinion. And now this judge is going to be on the Supreme Court. So the folks that are big abortion proponent either way, I want you to think about the civil rights issue. Nobody talked about this, but I think this still here's a bigger deal. Yes, Milton.
What does this judge require the suspect to do while the officers are killing him, Nate?
Well, in the Day case, the opinion basically said, I'll see a copy of that. They has to articulate to the officer in a nutshell why he's dying. So in other words, with Day's laying on the pavement, right? So he's laying on the pavement with metal handcuffs behind his back, so tight that he can't breathe. And he says, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. There are witnesses, there's video of this, right? The court says, in order for Day to have a cause of action, the dying suspect now must say, because of this positional fixation, it's constricted my airways, my airway constriction reduced my ability to breathe, and if you don't loosen the handcuffs, I'm gonna die. The opinion is that bizarre, whereby it says that he must articulate, and that's what happened. The coroner's report shows that they died by suffocation, right? The coroner's report in the death investigation was conducted by the police department. Police department took the body to the coroner's office. They watched the autopsy being performed, and this was the conclusion. But the appellate court threw the case out, saying there's no liability. This judge, with that mentality, if you are African-American male, this is a clear and present danger, because now if you surrender, they're saying that you can be tortured to death and there's no recourse. And that's what's more disturbing to me. They're talking about these restrictions on abortion. I'm worried about every time you get out of your house, you drive on the street, that you can be picked up, you could be killed, and there's no accountability. I think see, we're worried about the unborn, which is an important issue, but what about people that's already alive? Is it okay to kill those folks? And that's what disturb me. So we have this judge that's going to be on the Supreme Court that has that viewpoint. And I think that's a scary thought process that we're going to go down that path.
I think you need to talk to your congressman, and when they are allowed to question her during her confirmation hearings, you need to bring that up. He needs to bring that up and ask her about it. We can't let her slide on that. This is very, very dangerous. This swing vote in the Supreme Court, because they can set policy and law that will affect this country for the next 100 years, longer than we all have to live, everybody on this panel. And it's extremely important that we get all the issues out there and let the Senate decide, let Congress decide. So you're right, Nate. I think we need to fight with all of our resistance and every ounce of energy to bring out all the facts against her and to resist her appointment.
Okay, my students, what issue motivate the folks in your generation to go out and vote? I mean, this whole thing scares the heck out of me as a trial lawyer who's been doing this my whole career now. And most people don't see it. I'm going to be publicizing this, and I will take the initiative, and everybody in Congress is going to know about this, because we're filing our brief, I think, on Friday of next week. And so we would have our Supreme Court brief, and we're going to attach all the evidence so it become public record so everybody see. Video footage showing this guy suffocating to death. And most people should be outraged by this, but apparently this is okay with this particular judge. But what will motivate the young folks of your generation to get out there and vote, Yasmin?
I think that there needs to be a more aggressive front toward obvious propaganda with individuals rather than against an entire system. I think that the more individuals you can pinpoint exactly like that with issues of very specific and very obvious racial injustice in particular, because I agree too that there are a lot more issues that go into being a justice like that. But the racial injustice as a whole, I think, in this specific replacement of RBG, I just really feel like if it's not going to be aggressively personal propaganda, it's not going to work. Because as of right now, people are more so going against whatever Trump is doing and completely disregarding the people behind the scenes who are always the ones that have the biggest impact. This woman, I am so sure that most of the people that are advocating for RBG to not even be replaced before the election are not aware of who the actual nominees are. They're focused on not replacing rather than what the obvious decision is going to be to replace. And so they're completely ignoring it. And by the time they realize that she is in fact going to be replaced before the election, it's going to be too late and we're not going to have a voice. We would have missed the propaganda stage of the racial injustice of each of the people that are up for nomination. So I think that right now we're a little bit behind, and Trump as a whole is a distraction. He has been, though, for 4 years over a number of issues. But I think that he's continuing to do his distraction job very well and keeping people out of the sightline of what is actually important, who is actually important. And as you were saying that you're going to make it a social media campaign, I do think that that is the most effective to get young people involved in it. But then even so, they're not going to do the research. They're just really not going to do the research on anything else that this judge has ever done wrong. And you can summarize that case as clearly and concisely as you'd like, as many times as you like. But I think that if other people do not do the research on that specific case as well, it's never going to click for them, and they're never going to feel a personal accountability in the case. Because currently everyone thinks that it's society that's messed up. You hear a lot about the system that's messed up, but people don't understand that we are the society and we are the system. So I don't really know how to change that language.
Olivia?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's our generation not feeling like personable with the system. They're kind of like, oh, the justices, the president, they're so far away, it's not going to affect me. So I think the more that we try to show my generation that this will directly affect you, and this is what the justices are doing now, and they don't care about us, the Black population, from their past court trials, they obviously don't care. So I think we have to make a push more on social media, showing more of the research, because I'm gonna be honest, we're not gonna research what's happening. And so the social media thing is great, and also just showing that this will affect us more than it's gonna affect the people who are making the laws.
Max?
Yeah, so I think that it's not as straightforward as just people aren't going to do the research. I think it's more so an issue of teaching people, more so of literacy in terms of who you need to vote for or how you go about making that decision. A lot of people will not do the research or not feel inclined because they don't know how or they don't know what to look for. So instead of saying, here's the information, we should be saying, this is how you get the information. This is how you do your own research. This is how you really go out and make your own change. And then I think the other thing is, if you want to get more people involved and bring more awareness, people have to stop really ostracizing those that do speak out in terms of the larger people that have some sort of influence in the community. You oftentimes hear people say to athletes or celebrities, just like focus on whatever you do. Like people use like the whole shut up and dribble, or you hear don't bring politics into music. But you always have to rely on people that have that position of influence to really bring some sort of attention to an issue that otherwise wouldn't have been brought attention to in the first place. So I think that it's twofold in teaching people how to do the research, and then also encouraging those that have influence to use their influence to encourage research and active participation.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Attorney Sweeney.
Yes, I want to ask these beautiful young people a question. Do you see an apathy amongst your peers in voting, in deciding whether or not to get involved in the process? Because when I was a young college student, and any social issues that came up during that time, there was more of a sense of urgency than I see now. And I have a daughter who is my youngest is a college student, and I see kind of an apathy. My question to you, beautiful young college students, is there an apathy? And if so, why? And what can Nathaniel Lee, who is big in the Democratic Party, do to get to you these next couple of months to ensure as many people vote as we can get? I'll start with whoever wants to answer that question.
The answer is yes, there is an apathy, and it is a very specific demographic, though, and you can see the active incline in the apathy as you decrease in socioeconomic status as well as where you live in the actual nation. Because the Democratic Party, even the Republican Party, everyone is extremely particular about who they want to oppress. And quite frankly, none of us are low socioeconomic college students, which is exactly why we are on this platform to speak about it today. But all of the lower income Black students who are in the same position as I am do not have conversations like this because they don't have platforms like this to have them on, because Twitter doesn't talk about voting. Twitter tells you to vote. It doesn't tell you who to vote for, why you should vote for them. It doesn't give you a who, what, when, where, why. It just gives you a what to do. And without action statements and without calls to actions for advocacy and for activism, we see that it's virtually ineffective. So anything that anyone does on social media, if there is no action statement or any call to action, once again, it's you might as well have not done it. If you're telling people, because I mean, we see the flood, there is a flood on social media of why your vote is important, quote unquote, but there is no guidance after that point. So people are stuck in the registering phase. I mean, we registered 6,000 people to vote over summer at just our events alone. But now it's a matter of how do you get those 6,000 people from their kitchens on voting day to the actual polls to stand in the astronomical lines, mind you, because then they also oppress you at the voting polls. So it's like once you get the information, if you've somehow managed to get through all of the different holes, jump through all the loops that they tell you to jump through before you can be eligible to vote, now you have to stand in the loophole in and of itself, which is the heat and the line outside of whatever voting station you're subject to. So, I mean, I think that people would like to vote. People do not have time, though, to jump through the 30-something loopholes, especially not as college students.
Okay, producer, we'll take Imhotep on the line. He had a question for this panel today.
Hello, Attorney Lee and to the guests and Grimes and everyone else I may have missed.
Hey, Imhotep, can you speak up just a little bit? You're a little bit low in volume.
She just made can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, hold on. She just made a profound statement about the apathy, and first of all, I want to give thanks to the prosecutor in Mississippi for leaving Curtis Flowers alone. That has now been put to bed. One of the most egregious cases that we've known of. Curtis Flowers being tried 6 times for a crime he didn't do. They finally left him alone. So we want to lift them up and hope that we can get others in the same situation like that. Young student talked about we are the government, and to a certain extent that's true, but the Citizens United decision The Citizens United decision was one of the worst decisions. Nate talked about this. I read that same stuff about this Supreme Court nominee, Nate, and having to say that you're choking me. I thought it was crazy too. But that Citizens United decision probably was one of the worst ones that have gotten us to this point we're in now. Yes, the people, we're part of the system, but now big money and the oligarchy and the aristocracy and the plutocracy is running the system, as Dr. Cornel West talks about. So that's what we're fighting more than anything. Yes, we have to fight the long lines. Yes, we have to fight ID suppression. But that aristocracy, that plutocracy, that kleptocracy, that corporatocracy, all based on that Citizens United decision that said corporations are people. And here's my thing. If corporations are people, then why won't they pay their fair share of taxes like the people have to pay? We keep fighting about them just paying simple taxes. Bezos doesn't pay. Amazon, that's why I try my best not to order nothing from Amazon. Very few. I order to where companies that treat their employees better. That's another call, people. Nate talked about voting and protesting, but boycotts is what King was getting to before they killed him. Boycotts. You guys have got to get a list of employers together, college students or whatever, anybody listening, and target these employers. All this country understands is money. And when you hurt them in the pocketbook, that's probably even more powerful than a vote. Trust me. The only reason why Shaquille O'Neal, with his crazy self, is on Papa John's now as a board member is because of all the money they lost when black folks quit shop with him after what the ex-CEO said. Please get a list of companies, employers, this and the third. Look what the Wells Fargo CEO said earlier this week. Wasn't enough diversity, wasn't enough qualified black people. One of the only employees for Wells Fargo said he can come up with 20 resumes right now. Wells Fargo needs to be targeted. You've got to target these companies and hurt them in the pocketbook because they're the ones trying to influence the voting and the power shifts more than anything else. And I listen to what your comments got to be. And thanks for taking my call. Keep up the good work.
Wow. And we'll take one more caller, producer. Thanks, Emotel. We can't hear you, Larry. You need to speak up. Larry, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I just want the young people to know they need to do their own research about the civil rights movement and how it destroyed their future and have them in the position they're in right now in a divided black community where the wealthy black people like they are being privileged at this point, but are going to face the same fate as the poor people, poor blacks are facing right now. It can't be contradicted. So I just tell them to do their own research on Martin Luther King and the people that he worked with to destroy our future here in this country. And also the shootings and stuff that are going on, praise God for the internet, because these young people can look at the stories, make up their own mind, and see that this is nothing but another trick in a game that we got getting used again by Black Lives Matter. They're coming on the scene. They're collecting money. The Bail Project collected $34 million and only paid out $250,000 for bail. When they was discovered, they took off. But I'm tired of people raising money on us. I'm tired of people trying to persuade us to vote for any Democrat candidate that is not lucid and has lost and is just not suited for being on any international stage. Is a total embarrassment, and Kamala Harris also a total embarrassment. These young people are smart. They can see all the evidence and make up their own mind. And if they do vote, they can vote according to what they deduct and not what Dr. Kawaji Mfumu says. We are Americans. We need to be proud of our country. You're not going to get a better deal anywhere else on this planet. Thank you.
Okay.
Trump.
Okay. Oh, Jasmine.
It was important. I liked what he said about the partisan issue. One thing that I can say is that we will, for sure, as a generation, be a lot more bipartisan than other generations before, if not for, because I think that now we're starting to vote more in terms of an individual's heart, mind, and soul, as far as, or I guess in contrast to how you used to vote just based on a color and based on what the party as a whole says that they believe in. So that's really positive about what I said. I really enjoy, I guess, seeing the general increase of people being able to do, I mean, if they do any research at all, they at least make it worth it. And I think that they don't do any of the research for granted. I think that I am hearing a lot of people make a lot of educated decisions that I wouldn't expect, honestly. And that's really positive.
Okay, Milton.
Yes, John. Yes.
Yeah, what you said, let me make something real clear, what my issue is. Partisan or not, we're seeing a significant rollback in the plight of Black Americans now in our court system. Used to, if you were called a racial epithet, you had a right to sue in federal court. We're seeing decisions now with these new Trump-appointed judges, whereby being called the N-word and things like that, you need to have tough skin. So what people don't realize with this so-called research, what they don't get to research is court decisions. You know, so you have to be in the battle every day to see what's going on. And I'll tell you what's going on now. We don't have a choice in this matter now, because we've seen these Republican operatives is turning the clocks back. Right before our eyes, I see it every day in litigation as to what is occurring in our justice system. Breonna Taylor case only highlights that. You know, you had the Republican Attorney General who did what appeared to be a farce grand jury investigation. Everybody in the legal community knows that you can make these grand jury things turn out the way you want to, the way you present evidence or not present evidence. So, but the danger that we're facing now is that when these folks say there's Black Lives Matter, they're some type of communist regime, that's something that Russia is pushing. The point of this whole discussion, though, is that we do have to educate ourselves as to how we vote and why we vote for candidates. But right now, we've seen a pandemic that's now killed close to 205,000 people. A disproportionate amount of those are African Americans. So everything that bad that happened in this country hurts our community worse. So when we're making decisions, we can't rely on this crazy stuff about these esoteric issues, abortion, things like that. The things that we have to look at is, what is the quality of our life in our society? Are we treated fairly? And
No.
do we have Milton? Oh, yes, Milton.
Okay. You know, I was, while you were talking earlier and the other guests were talking, I was thinking about the Kavanaugh nomination for the Supreme Court and what we all went through, and seeing a rapist take the bench on the Supreme Court, and seeing the last minute investigation supposedly by the FBI where they didn't go and talk to witnesses that should have been brought forward. I think what Trump and his colleagues have shown us is that we need an overhaul on this democratic system that we're presently in. How he got into office, he didn't have 2 million people, he lost by 2 million votes, but he still won the election with this electoral college as to how it worked 200 years ago, and it was used to get him into office. Mitch McConnell right now is on the run. They are damn near assuring people they're going to nominate and get appointed the next Supreme Court justice. Forget that when Obama was president, he had damn near a year and they wouldn't let him appoint. They won't follow that rule. So it's confusing times. I don't want to advocate revolution because it's that kind of takes violence, but we've got to do something to overhaul the system and change the system, because the system works for them right now. It's working for them. They're laughing at. Yes, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead, John.
No, you finish. Go finish, Milton.
They're laughing at us. They're laughing at us. I see it. You see it. The guy was on television yesterday saying, oh, the president is going to accept the outcome of this election if it's a fair election. Well, who in the hell ever heard of somebody talk like that in this country about an election? So they're advocating if we don't win, the person elected may not get in office unless it's Donald Trump. This sounds like a dictator.
Yeah, no question
So
about it.
Huh?
You're right.
Go ahead, John.
No, no.
I'm sorry, guys.
Let me throw this question out to the panel. Assume that the Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court gets confirmed on a fast track basis before November. Assume further that Trump loses in November and Biden takes office in January. Does the Biden administration then challenge the appointment of the new Supreme Court justice? What do you say about that, Milton, or anybody?
I say Kavanaugh should be. I say it should be challenged. I don't know all the legal directives that could be applied to it, John, but we are working with a gangster president. And I think many of his things should be challenged, his decisions.
There's one thing that you need to know, everybody. This is very important. The judgeship that Judge Amy Barrett took actually should have been a African-American female named Myra Selby. Myra Selby was in the Supreme Court. She was one of the most qualified jurors ever nominated for the Seventh Circuit. Mitch McConnell sat on her nomination for 15 months. She never got a hearing. So Amy Barrett only became a federal judge because they discriminated against the African-American female who should have been on the bench. So that's something you may not know, but check it out. It's Myra Selby in the Supreme Court, was nominated by President Obama back in October of 2015, and she never got a hearing. It's insulting. Go ahead.
Let me say this. Trump can't do all that he's doing alone.
Right.
It seems that his most fervent supporter and the one who is most complicit with Trump in all of these doings has been Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is engaged in a very close Senate race with Amy McGrath in Kentucky. I think that the word needs to go out that McConnell needs to be voted out of office, and he can be voted out of office. I think that no one gave Amy McGrath, a former military fighter pilot, any chance of winning. Now she has closed the gap significantly, and she has a chance of winning. So I think that word needs to go out that she needs some help, Amy McGrath. I'm not totally for all of her platform, but she's a Democrat, and she's light years better ahead of and a whole lot better than McConnell. McConnell, I think, is one of the architects of this, what is going on in this country. Amy McGrath is her name.
Okay, let's go to the line real quickly. Sherry, you have a question or comment for us today?
Yes, thank you for having me. I have this question to the panel, and I wanted to, rebut what Larry said. Not really rebut it. I just want to put this out because he's such a Republican type of person. We need to really look at our history. To the panel, I have a problem with the electoral vote for this. I feel like we got too many children making decisions who hasn't lived in the life of things going on in society. I think the popularity vote used to do it, but since the Republican can see they can buy things. I think Democrats, we try to do it kind of a little right when it comes to we don't want to pay for the votes. But this presidency right here, I feel like he brought his way in. He paid for it. And he's kind of out of hand. So to the young channel, I think Democrats really need to get out into the neighborhood to our young men and women who do not understand. One lady on the panel did say there's a lot of de-education, even in the college platforms of our society, which are our stronger youth. But on the other hand, in the neighborhoods, we not only have older people. I just met an 83-year-old family who said they haven't voted since Ford. And that was appalling to hear that out of older people. I think we need to tell our history, because what I wanted to say was Bush administrative senior sold from the S&L loans back in the day. And some of the things that we have seen from the Republicans, even in the Desert Storm War, there's a lot of things that happen. So I just say go back in your history as attorneys, and young college people, and talk to your grandparents and get the real history of things of how we doing. And stop just voting for these parties that are Democrat and Republican only, because some of our liberals don't get a chance, and they are from our family. And then let's get people to understand primary voting. And I wonder, how would you address that as young folks? Because some of the lawmaking that we're doing now hits the lower income families who don't understand what's going on. And our education, from the education, my son is a 8th grader and told me they don't even talk about how everything works in Congress. And that bothered me because he got it when he was in the 3rd and 2nd grade. So they're not teaching. So how do we change that mentality level so we can get real honest people in the office that should not have?
Okay, well, Sherry, got
like
that.
in
Now,
office?
here's the deal.
Thank you.
We only got a limited amount of time, and we got a bunch of callers. So who want to respond real quickly to Sherry?
Max, you got it.
Ashley? Who?
Max.
Max? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that once again it starts with accurate with accurate and direct communication on how to vote. So one of the things that you have to do, I feel like, is really I guess this is a responsibility that falls on those who have already received some sort of education on voting or how to vote and the effects on it. And it's really to get those people that are educated on this issue to go out into the community and go out, talk to their friends who, might not necessarily either be interested or really well versed in this issue. And then it's kind of like a cascade effect where once you start to encourage and teach and educate your friends, and then they have the knowledge and then they can pass it on to the next people. But it really starts from those people who already have some sort of handle on it. And then from there, they can really become active and really become voices for change and advocacy within their own communities.
Okay, real quickly, we'll go to the line to get one call, but caller, you only got 40 seconds or less. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The Democrats, they play checkers while the Republicans play checkers. So elections are won on strategy. And one of Trump's strategies is diversion. He's doing a real good job of that. So
I can't hear you, Don.
They might win some elections, but right now they're playing checkers. Down the Baptist from Indianapolis.
Okay, I can hear him. Okay, give me the next caller, Martha, real quickly.
Yes, and I'd like to dispute what the gentleman just said. The Democrats are trying to run an honest election. They're not trying to lie to the people about how they're going to get in. He's telling us he's going to cheat. And if we went up to a professor and said, before I take this test, I'm going to cheat.
What's the question?
We wouldn't be able to even take the test. So with his attitude, he really doesn't need to even being able to go run anywhere. And, you know, I think we're doing fine. I think we need to stand up strong because I believe he's going to lose in a landslide. And if he loses in a landslide, you got to go like anybody else would have to go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ain't no if, dude. Ain't no if.
Okay, closing comment from John today. Closing comment real quickly.
Well, couple of things. Number one, we have to vote. I know your program, Nathaniel, does not take a one side or the other stance, but I think we know which way that you are leaning, Democrat. But you got to vote. You have to vote, exercise our franchise, and just keep on pounding and keep on protesting when you see racial injustice and things that happen like they did in the Breonna Taylor case. Let your voice be known. Keep it out there, and your voice is heard. Don't ever stop protesting, and just keep the faith. I think that when we all speak next year, I think the country will be back to normal. The pandemic will be gone, and we will have a civil president in the White House. And I think that it's going to take about 3 or 4 years to perhaps put the country back where it was when President Obama left. Maybe it won't go back there because of the Supreme Court, but I think we're going to be in a much better space next year. Just keep on doing what you're doing.
Milton, closing comment.
Well, John, I wish I had that hope that you have, brother. I do have the hope, but I'm afraid. I really am afraid of these judges whom I've seen write opinions to ignore the facts and make up their own facts. Recently, as last week in a case I had, I'm concerned that Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump has scared their supporters into marching in line and sticking with them and ignoring the desire of the majority of the people. So it's scary. And this man has said, I ain't leaving office. So I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, John, and I'm afraid. I don't know what to tell these young people. I don't have an answer. I heard that Home Depot gave Trump $7 million for his campaign. So I told my handyman that, no, you can't go to Home Depot last week. And he looked at me like I was crazy, you know? So, man, I'm lost. I'm lost. I honestly am, Nate. I'm sorry to say that. But John, I'm with you. I hope it happens the way you said.
Well, to our listening, I apologize. We're now out of time. For next week, we're going to make a major announcement about the election and what we're doing, a major initiative we're starting. So stay tuned. I'd like to thank our special guest today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yasmin Anderson, Olivia Taylor, Max Siegel. I hope you do well. I'm proud of you and continue to do good deeds. They did a remarkable thing this summer. And of course, our weekly guest, thank you. In the audience, make sure you tune in from now on YouTube. Thank you and stay safe.
Take care, Nate.
See you. Be safe.
Thank you so much.